We're going to be talking about the great grain robbery. This is our topic tonight. And the question is bread bad for your health? There's a lot of publicity out there that says bread is bad for you. Carbs are not good for you. You're going to gain weight. You're going to have problems with your blood sugars and so forth. Is that really true? We're going to find out part of the answer tonight, but the other part we will find out next month when we talk more about the health benefits of whole grains. In the meantime, I would like to ask you, let me share with you what our program is tonight. We're going to talk about the advantages of homemade bread, the processing of wheat, what's hiding in your loaf of bread, and what are the healthiest breads. And we're going to show you how to make a no-knead whole wheat bread, which is about 5 minutes. Cornbread demo by Catherine. Let me ask you, what was the staple food of human civilizations? Let's ask, for example, the Aztecs. What did they eat for food? What was their staple? Corn. The Incas had what is called the gold of the Incas was amaranth and quinoa. And then we have the Asian civilization. What was their staple food? Rice and buckwheat. I didn't know, but it was buckwheat also. Is that true? Yeah. For the Asian civilizations? Millet also? Oh, wow. And then we're talking about the Africans. I was just on a medical mission trip to Africa. Just came back about 5 weeks ago. Had a wonderful time. Learned a lot and was blessed. And their main grains are millet on the left and teff. They make their bread out of teff. It's called injera. And it's a crepe thin bread that is famous to their cuisine. It's about 12 inches wide, circumference all around. And the mark of a native is that your fingers are never stained by the curry. So they're eating their curry on top of one of these injera breads, but if you don't get your fingers stained, it means you're a native and you know how to eat without a spoon. So they make this bread, and it's a typical 5-day fermentation process. It tastes kind of sour, but we got to like it. The patients that I saw, they actually had this 3 times a day. If they were well fed, they ate injera 3 times a day with different sauces. And if they were poor, they didn't have that. They just had water, coffee, and whatever root vegetables they could find. Very, very sad situation. So, whole grains, or the wheat grain in particular, has a lot of health benefits. They have a lot of great nutrients. The B vitamins, all our B vitamins are found in the wheat kernel, including vitamin E and hundreds of phytochemicals. We have trace elements such as iron, zinc, copper, manganese, selenium, and phosphorus. On top of that, we have protein and carbohydrates. So really, you could say the wheat kernel is a superfood. And as such, it provides a lot of benefits to our body. The B vitamins are especially important for our nervous system. The iron and magnesium are important for our immune system and oxygen in the blood. The only problem is that these days, a lot of the wheat is sprayed with glyphosate, which is Roundup, prior to the harvest. And that is the problem. So most of the wheat we're getting in the stores are sprayed. So it is best if you get organic wheat. And it's difficult to find. I went to Kroger, and I couldn't find any. I went to a small heritage market in Fincastle, and they have very good wheat. And I was able to get for some of you this unprocessed wheat. Those of you who are on the front tables, it's a wheat that has no GMOs. But I think Earth Fair Market, I'm sure you'll be able to find this organic wheat. So we have been told that bread is the staff of life. Is that true? Is bread the staff of life? Let's find out. Let's look at the anatomy of a wheat kernel. There are 3 vital parts of a wheat kernel. The outer bran layer, as you see on the left, has fiber. Most of the fiber is found on the bran layer. All of it, I should say. All your B vitamins are there, trace minerals, and phytochemicals. Then on the bottom of the wheat kernel is the germ. Do you see the germ? The germ has the B vitamins, vitamin E, trace minerals, phytochemicals, and a little bit of fat. And then in the middle is the inner layer, or the endosperm. And the endosperm is the part from which white flour is made. The only nutrients that are in endosperm, can anyone guess? In the white part? Pardon me?
I just said carbohydrates.
Yeah, the starches, carbohydrates, and what else? One more nutrient. Protein. So the inner layer, the endosperm, has protein and carbohydrates, but all the other minerals and vitamins are totally missing. So that is where we run into a problem. So here, as you look, during the refining of wheat, at least 25 nutrients are lost. Look, thiamine 86%, riboflavin 70%, niacin 80%, iron 84%, folic acid 70%, chromium 67%, and on, calcium, copper, phosphorus, magnesium, zinc, and 68% of the fiber. I've even seen higher figures, like 70% of the fiber. And so, what they have done, they have said, oh, okay, we have 25 or more nutrients missing, no problem. We're going to replace 5 of the nutrients, and we will call it enriched flour. How many have you seen enriched flour? But the problem is that the vitamins and minerals they add, they're synthetic. They're not bioavailable, meaning the body can't easily recognize or use them. And this is what we're eating when we're eating white bread and white bread products. So, my question to you, have we enriched or have we robbed the flour? We have obviously robbed the flour. Let me ask you, would you feel enriched if someone robbed you of $25 and gave you back $5? No. Would you feel enriched if they took $300 from you and never gave you back? Do you realize that when they refine the flour, they take out from 2 to 300-fold of the phytochemicals? The phytochemicals are the plant chemicals that fight disease. They're totally stripped from the fiber and from the wheat germ, okay? So definitely we're being robbed. And that is a very, very, very sad thing. Now, I wanted to show you, and I gave you this just to show you what happened. In the late 1800s, they developed rollers for grinding grain, which made it possible to remove the bran and the germ, and then grind the endosperm, which is the starch and the protein, and then we were left with that white powder, that gorgeous white powder that could travel long distances without spoiling, and that it was almost nutritionally worthless. And this is white flour, our first fast food. Okay? So here is a simplified diagram of a mill. And you can, I don't know if you can read it, but you can go online. I gave you the link. This is a simplified diagram that all the processes that wheat kernels go through in order to become white flour. No wonder we're being robbed. No wonder our body is being robbed of the nutrients that were designed for our health. And you think it's only bread. But no, how many foods that you eat in your diet are made with white flour? Just look at the list. It's half of the food that we eat. Bread, pasta, cookies, pretzels, crackers, cereals, muffins, you name it. This is all on the list. So we do not want to be robbed. Let's continue on and see. If bugs won't touch the white flour, you know what that means? They're wiser than we are because they love nutritious flour. So that's why you find bugs in whole wheat flour, okay? It's full of nutrients and B vitamins, and they're being nourished. If they were to eat white flour, they get no nutrition, so they never touch it. You can keep the shelf life of white flour, even though they put a date, it's for a long time. Now, let us look at the advantages of homemade bread. I started making bread maybe about 40 years ago. And shortly after I got married, then we bought a nice mill and we ground our own flour. And then we bought a bread machine later. Then when my son was homeschooling, he was 11 years old, I taught him to make bread. I thought, I don't have daughters. I'm going to teach my sons to make bread. And he did very well. And he was making bread, made a business out of it, homeschool business. And every Monday was bread baking, and Tuesday, my husband, who worked for the city of Orange County transportation department, actually it was the whole county offices, he took the bread to work. And so the mayor and the secretary and everyone was buying bread. It was lots of fun, and I remember him telling me one day he went into the mayor's office later after he delivered the bread, and there was the mayor with his feet on the desk and just chomping away at his loaf. So anyway, we always had fun with bread. So like I said, it's an excellent source of fiber. It prevents 3 killer diseases. Can you help me? What are the 3 top killer diseases? Heart disease, cancer, and strokes, I believe. So it's an excellent source of vitamins, B vitamins especially. It's free from artificial additives, chemical preservatives, and vinegar, and dairy products, and whatever else they put in it. It's less expensive. It has wonderful texture and aroma, natural goodness packaged perfectly by our Creator. So the way that wheat kernel was made, this was perfectly packaged by our Creator who knows what our body needs. And every whole food we eat is perfectly packaged for our body. So lastly, but not least, we live in a very fast-paced society. Everyone is busy. Even families come home, they're busy, they're rushing, doing this and that. But I want to tell you that bread making brings the family together. I guarantee you, moms or dads or anyone, if you make some bread or start making it and it starts smelling, your family will come around and smile and they'll give you a hug and a kiss, because there's something about bread that is very, very special. The family gathers when it's finished, gathers around the table, let's slice it, after it cools off, which is not the healthiest thing to do. But this bread that I will show you, it's easier to do that with because it has very little yeast. And you cut a slice and you have some good homemade bread and you talk and enjoy the evening. It really works. I can testify to that. So, let me ask you first, how many ingredients does it take to make a loaf of bread? Give me a number. 3 or 4. Very good. Our recipe has 4. Give me the ingredients. Number 1, flour, whole wheat flour, water, yeast, and salt. That's all. This bread has only that. Now the bread we will show next month, some people add oil, which I don't like to add. And you need a little bit of sweetening, like honey or something, to get the yeast to grow fast. But here is a health nut bread. It says whole grain from Arnold. You know how many ingredients are here? 40. 40. So from 4 to 40, what's the percentage? 10 times more ingredients. Okay? So this is the problem that we're facing. Besides being robbed of our nutrients, we are being cheated by having all kinds of chemicals added to our breads. And I'm going to share with you 9 ingredients that you should watch out when you go shopping for bread. Now, when you go shopping for bread, there's almost 100 choices in some markets, okay? Maybe 50 choices. And there are 2 places where you can buy bread. You can buy it by the bakery, okay? They might have like 10 loaves, which are supposedly freshly made, but which they bring from their factory, and the dough is already done, and they just put it in their oven, and they bake it, okay? Those breads don't have as many ingredients, but you still have to read the labels. Now, the other section where you go to buy bread is where? No, we're still in the supermarket. We first went to the bakery, right, and checked out their breads, okay? And then if you don't like their bread, what you saw, then you go to this other section, and where are those breads stored? On the shelves, that's right. Now, those breads have an expiration date, so they have a lot of chemicals. And there, I mean, I have literally been there for 15 minutes at times looking for a good loaf of bread. And one after one, they may have wonderful names like organic, wheat, no cholesterol, all kinds of funny names that have nothing to do with it, but they don't have what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is 100% whole wheat bread, flour, and water and salt and yeast, okay? And maybe some honey or some sweetener. So here we are. The first ingredient, potassium bromate. Potassium bromate is an oxidizing agent which helps to strengthen the dough and improve the rising and gives it volume. It makes the bread nice and tall. However, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is part of the World Health Organization, their job is to prevent cancer by researching the potential carcinogens that affect human beings. They consider potassium bromate dangerous. They say there's no data that it affects humans, however, it causes kidney and thyroid tumors when fed to rats. It is also found in toothpaste, this product, potassium bromate, and in some people it causes bleeding and inflammation of gums. It is also found in foods such as sodas like Mountain Dew, Powerade, and different drinks. So this one is a definite no on your list if you go shopping for bread. The next one is azodicarbonamide, or ADA. This is a dough conditioner. And lately, I don't know if you have been listening to the news. I don't know if it was this year, last few years, Subway announced it would remove ADA from their bread dough due to its potential harmful health effects. And the problem with this is a chemical called semicarbazide, SEM, which forms during bread making. And according to the FDA, high levels of SEM have been shown to increase tumors in female rats, but not in in female mice, but not in male mice. On the other hand, the FDA says, well, you know what? What you are feeding to the mice is not how much humans will be getting, so it's okay. We can use it. However, the World Health Organization says that ADA is linked to increased risk of respiratory problems and asthma in workers handling this chemical. So what it seems to me, the World Health Organization is much more strict than the FDA. The FDA is just letting things go by. And so another group, the Environmental Working Group, found nearly 500 foods have ADA. Now notice this mat. Do you know why I put it there? Oh, you know what kind of mat that is? It's a yoga mat. And this ADA is found in the yoga mats, but it's also in your bread. Would you want to eat bread that has ADA in it? I don't think so. Okay, here's another ingredient to avoid: trans fats. We have talked about that here. Another name for it is partially hydrogenated oils. Whenever you see the word partially hydrogenated on food, you want to stay away from it, because it is made artificially by pumping oxygen into, by adding hydrogen to vegetable oils. And this prevents the bread from getting spoiled. However, if the food contains less than 0.5 grams of trans fats, they're allowed to put 0 on the nutrition label. And therefore, if you have 2 or 3 slices of bread or 2 or 3 cookies, you can easily get 2-3 grams of trans fats, and they're very dangerous because they're increasing your LDL, bad cholesterol. They're increasing inflammation, which causes heart disease, diabetes, and stroke. So this is another no-no definitely on our list. The third ingredient is mono and diglycerides. They have some trans fats in them, but we don't know how much because they don't tell us. And there's, they don't necessarily, they're safe to eat. However, they're not necessarily good for you because of the trans fats they have. We don't know how much. And if you're trying to eat a healthy diet, it's best to avoid mono and diglycerides. The other problem is there are 2 sources of mono and diglycerides. It's either from animal fat, which comes from pigs and cows, or vegetable source. Sometimes they say animal mono and diglycerides, and sometimes they say vegetable mono and diglycerides, and other times they don't say anything. So the only way to find out, you have to call the manufacturer. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, it's best not to use it. And notice this peanut butter here. You know, they will say peanut butter, but this peanut butter you can't see. They'll say natural peanut butter, but it has mono and diglycerides and sugar and all other things. The only peanut butter you want to get is the one that has only peanuts and salt, if you like salt, and we don't even need salt. Number 5 is butylated hydroxyanazole, BHA. This chemical is an antioxidant, but it's used as a preservative to prevent rancidity of fats. So what happens is there's very little oil in breads, but some companies use more, and then when the bread gets old, this begins to have a bad odor and unpleasant flavor. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, BHA is reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. However, BHA still is approved as an additive by the FDA, unfortunately. And as you can see, all of these foods and many more have it there, including other baked goods and potato chips, and these are some kind of links. And number 6, sodium. Most homemade bread recipes have small amounts of salt. However, if you look at some breads, they have up to 230 milligrams, like this one right here. One slice has 230 milligrams. Now, as we all know, high blood pressure is a big problem in this country. 1 in 3 people have high blood pressure. And so we really have to cut down our sodium intake. We're taking 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. And you know what is the requirement for our body? Only 1,500. So we're way over the limit on our sodium from all the processed foods we're eating and the canned foods and the boxed foods. So the American Heart Association says, watch out for the salty 6. And among the salty 6 is bread. Now let me tell you a story. My father loves to eat bread, and he had an excellent diet. My mom cooked everything from scratch all our lives and all his life. And, lots of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and the works. And about 10 years ago, my dad develops high blood pressure, and we're trying to figure out why. He's exercising, walks 2-3 miles a day. Well, we finally figured it out. He worked in the town of Redlands. He has a tailor shop, and he's a designer, and he loves bread. As a kid, he grew up during World War II, and they were poor in those days. Mom made bread, and that was a good staple food. So he would go to Trader Joe, and you know how good the Trader Joe breads are, and he would get the French baguettes. Well, they're still warm while they arrive, and those are loaded with sodium. And then when he found out, and we pointed it out to him, he said, oh, okay, I won't, I'll be good. But then he forgets and he goes back to it, So this is very serious business, serious. Now, caramel coloring. Caramel coloring is used in food a lot. To darken the breads, especially dark wheat bread or rye bread. Have you seen some of the rye breads that are dark? And you look at them and they're so dark, or you've seen really dark whole wheat breads and you think you're eating this awesome 100% whole wheat bread, and when you look at it, you discover caramel coloring, and you discover the first ingredient is enriched white flour, and then you realize what a trickery this all is. So the problem with this caramel coloring, the health concerns are that there are 2 contaminants, 2 and 4-methyl-limidazole. Okay, it may be produced as a result of processing. And the U.S. National Toxicology Program found these chemicals cause cancer in mice. The World Health Organization considers them possibly carcinogenic to humans. And the California state is pretty strict. They put it on their Proposition 65 list of chemicals, and every product that has this ingredient has a warning that it causes cancer in animals. So this is another one we don't want to use. Then we have high fructose corn syrup. And this, of course, is found in many breads and baked products. However, if you look, some of the more expensive ones have a big label that says no high fructose corn syrup. So they're making it. The majority still have it. And this, of course, is a man-made product from, it's much cheaper than sugar. It produces very nice browning and baking, keeps the bread moist. And studies show that the problem with this is the increases triglycerides, which are your fats in the blood, which can also, people who have high triglycerides can also have high blood sugar, decreased insulin sensitivity, and it's a precursor for diabetes. It's much sweeter than sugar also because of the fructose. And then soy. Some of the breads have soy. Now, there's nothing wrong with soy. Soy is good. It can come as soy lecithin, which is also found in many foods. Or soybean oil, it is safe. However, the problem is that 93% of the soy in this country is not organic. So, or it's non-GMO. So you want to purchase 100% organic bread if it has soy, and even if it doesn't, if the wheat is, whole wheat is, then you're sure that all the ingredients are organic. Are there any questions so far? No questions. So what are the healthiest breads? Food for Life Ezekiel bread. This is made from sprouted wheat, or it's made from like 8 grains. It's a recipe from the Bible. This company is from California, Food for Life. Organic, certified organic. You can buy it in the freezer section of Kroger. Some of you are shaking your head. All the ones who are using it, good for you guys. I'm proud of you. And it's not cheap. It's $4.50, sometimes on sale for $3.99. But the good thing is, you eat one slice of bread of this, and you feel full with some avocado on top. To me, that's a meal in itself, with several fruits for breakfast and a handful of nuts, and you're good to go, because it is very dense, and it's full of nutrition, and all the grains are sprouted, which makes them very nutritionally bioavailable. And then there's Alvarado Street Bakery. That's a California. I haven't seen Alvarado Street Bakery bread. Manna Organics. It's a very nice bread. It almost tastes like cake. It's so healthy. I saw that at the co-op. I think it's in the freezer section. The rest, I'm not sure. I might have cut one of the breads. Rudy's. Have you seen Rudy's bread? I think Costco had them, or maybe Sam's. So there's not too many healthy breads around Roanoke, unfortunately, which I think I put that on your handout, this, the breads, the healthy breads. So here we can read these ingredients. On the top, look, is this a healthy bread on top? Are you sure? Is this 100% whole wheat? How do you know?
Because it doesn't say it.
It doesn't say it, and they added oat bran. If it was 100% whole wheat, why would they need to add extra bran, right? So it's whole wheat flour. That's the main ingredient. However, after water comes unbleached wheat flour, which is white flour, okay? And then flour, honey, yeast. Okay, it's good. It has sunflower seed says. Otherwise, it's okay. Millet, oats, cracked whole wheat, oat bran, but it's not 100%. We don't know. It has more whole wheat than white. So it's a pretty good bread for bread. But the one below, it has all the things I told you and maybe more. Distilled vinegar. I don't like when they put vinegar. And there's milk and datum. I don't even know what that is. You know, long ago, our loving Creator knew what would happen to the bread industry, and how the beautiful kernel that He created that was just perfect with all the nutrients would be destroyed. And He says, why do you spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest fare. Isn't that true? So I think we need to seriously think, what kind of bread are we eating? Are we going to continue to eat this in light of the evidence? And this is only half of the evidence. Next month, we'll share the other half, the benefits of whole grains. What are the health benefits? But we don't want to waste our money and our calories on fluffy food that has nothing in it. You know, if you take Wonder Bread, I always like to show a demo with Wonder Bread. You can take the whole loaf and squeeze it like this. And not only Wonder Bread, even some of those so-called whole wheat breads, you could squeeze it like this, right? So in closing, homemade bread is good for your health. It's good for your family cohesiveness. It's good for your social health. Whenever we would make bread as a family, we would always give one loaf away. It's such a blessing. We moved here to Roanoke 10 years ago, and I didn't know many people except a few people in my church, and it was pretty lonely. But anyway, here we are. We were remodeling our house, our bathroom. We had this nice older gentleman contractor. He would come for 3 weeks or a month. It took him to remodel our bathrooms. And I would make every week whole wheat bread, and I would give him, and he would just love, just to see his smile. And he would say, my wife really loves this bread. I said, I'm so glad she does. And it just brings you joy. You know, when you share your bread with others, it brings you joy. And we can share in more than one way. And I'll tell you about it in a second. So, you know, it's also good for your social health. When I make bread and when I put a loaf of nice bread on the table, I think of others who don't have bread. Because I was just on a mission trip and I saw these wonderful African people, my brothers and sisters, who I could have been born in Ethiopia. I could have had not bread. I could have been hungry. But they're there, and there's many people, even in Roanoke, who are very hungry. And, you know, I'm looking at life in a different way, and I want to help people who are hurting, people who are hungry. If I can give them a loaf of bread, if I can give them clothes, if I can share in some way of the blessings that I've been given. And last but not least, it is good for your spiritual health. And I will show you. These are some of the African kids. I went to their home in one of these little huts to see the mother. And they're hungry. Some of them are so malnourished, especially this one boy he looked like 4 months, but he was almost 4 years old. Very, very hungry. And the spiritual blessing is this. Jesus said, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger, and whoever believes in me will never thirst. You know, every loaf of bread has a stamp of Calvary. When I eat my bread, or I cut my bread, I remember that it was stamped with the cross of Calvary, and I'm very thankful for that. So bread making brings us joy as we share, as we make it for ourselves and share it with others. Are you convinced? Yes. Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions?
What's the usual sodium in the homemade?
Pardon me?
Sodium content in the homemade.
It's very small. It's about 1.25 half a teaspoon. I increased it a little for a loaf of bread. I'm not sure how much that is. I can find out in grams of sodium, but it's very, very low. You can't taste it. Any other questions?
For those who have been suffering with cancer, no matter whether it's throat cancer, whatever, I see here where you have Catherine's buttery cornbread. I'm seeing that sugar, so I'm trying to keep my husband away from sugar per se.
Yes.
So can that be substituted out with something else?
Oh, the cornbread.
Yes.
Yeah, that recipe has some sugar in it. I have another recipe that has less sugar, but you could use honey. Mm-hmm. You could use honey. You could use turbinado sugar, which is a raw sugar, or date sugar, or even coconut sugar. You can take it out. I personally don't put any sugar in mine because I come from Europe and our cornbread is more on the savory side, so we don't put any sweetener in it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
There's a lot of controversy about gluten.
Yes.
Isn't gluten one of the ingredients in wheat, and that's why
Yes,
people
yes.
avoid it. So we,
I'm going to mention it briefly next month, but we'll have a whole lecture on that. Yes. I think that also needs to be discussed because many people are so afraid of wheat because of the gluten, and they think they are. They're afraid they're gluten sensitive, or they're afraid they have gluten intolerance, but not necessarily. You know, it could be also because of the kind of bread they're using that has the flour that is totally void of nutrients. So yeah, there's ways to find out. So we'll talk about that at another time. That's a good question. Yes.
I noticed your recipe calls for unbleached flour. I've been using bread flour. Is that, how do they compare? I don't know.
I would have to look. I'm not sure. The reason unbleached flour is that's, even though we don't believe in taking all the nutrients out, you know, some people like to put a little bit of white flour. So I put in mine 1/3 a cup, or 1 cup, or 1/3 the amount of white flour, but I've also made it 100% whole wheat, and that's the best. But the unbleached is not bleached with chemicals, so that's for sure the best. The bread flour, I'm not sure. It might have some yeast in it. You have to look on the label. What else does it have? Do you know, Catherine?
I think bread flour is a little bit more higher in gluten, higher protein
Okay.
than the
So there are two different types of wheat. They have a spring wheat and they have a winter wheat. The winter wheat has more protein or more gluten, and the spring wheat has less. So it might be like she said, that it's the winter wheat, but it's the white flour made from the winter wheat, so it has a little more gluten or protein in it. Yes. Any other questions? Okay.